Welcome to the Tetra Health and Performance Podcast. Today we're catching up with one of Benchmark Canterbury's favourite sons, an alumni of the Benchmark Canterbury staff. We have Michael Baldock. Mate, how are you, buddy? We've missed you. Great to have you here. Mate, fill us in on what's been going on.
Thanks, heaps. It's really good to be here and back on the podcast. So for anyone who kind of doesn't know, the last probably 6 months, I started working at the St George Illawarra Dragons, the NRL team, as the head sports scientist there. So basically started in November, just before the players returned for pre-season, and I've been with the team, working as their sports scientist over the last 6 months through into the season. We're up to about we're in round 14 now, heading into this weekend. It's been a really good experience for me, kind of progressing through into that next level of my career, and I've really enjoyed, taking my working knowledge and stuff from uni and my different experiences, including all my experiences here, into that next step of professional development with that NRL squad and the sporting and professional sport environment.
Because straight out of uni into a role like that, that's pretty awesome, isn't it? That's pretty spectacular. How do you feel at the moment in the role? How are you going?
Thanks. Yeah, well, it definitely, I've been extremely lucky. I kind of came through and I did my undergrad, and then I did my postgraduate degree following the COVID year, obviously being a bit tough. And I did a lot of interning hours in that time with Rugby Australia, so that sporting program, and then I was lucky enough to then make it into the interview process for this role. So yeah, it is extremely lucky for someone in my position at this age to kind of get in there, but definitely on the back of that had a bit of imposter syndrome, starting off going, questioning myself, how can I jump straight in here? But especially one of the things about the environment is that it's quick, everything's happening straight after the other. There's no kind of time to stop and take a breath, really. So you kind of have to just get stuff done, really. But I'm feeling like after, that was probably the first few months, I was really felt that kind of pressure of the jump, similar to obviously.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, well, if you compare it to the players as well, they jump from maybe the academy to the next level of representative honours or something like that. Same thing, kind of jumping from an internship role or something like that into a full-time role is going to be a big change in what you have to do and your expectations.
I think we all suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes, right? But you were the hardest working employee, always super dedicated, always further education on the side as well. You had your internships, you had everything going on, so that obviously so well deserved. And what does your job look like at the moment? What does your role as the head sports scientist look like?
Yeah, how many days, what hours, what are the expectations?
Yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. No, I did try to, work hard at everything I did, and I'm lucky and thankful that it's paid off for me in the long run. But so pretty much the easiest way to explain it is my schedule, my hours is kind of based off what the players are doing. So in my role, I follow the team. So if they're playing in Queensland, for instance, I'll fly and I'll travel with the team and I'll be with them on game day. But so in essence, so that's my hours, I guess. In essence, my role as sports scientist, and this can change between organisations, obviously. So there's sports science is a very broad industry and environment where some sports scientists are more practitioner-based, some are more data-based, and there's everything in between. For me, the way I kind of like to best see my role is a bit of a facilitator in collecting and presenting data between all the different departments in the football squad that I can. So, for example, within the high performance department, you can have a strength and conditioning coach, so someone who maybe focuses more on the gym-based environment. You might have a conditioning coach separate to that who does more of the field-based cardio, respiratory fitness kind of stuff. And then you also have physios who are dealing with rehabilitation, player monitoring, all that kind of stuff. A lot of my role is trying to gather as much information I can about the players and then present it in a way that they all can use it to make their decisions on a regular basis kind of thing.
And mate, that data management and collection, is that just with the top 30, or is that also with the resis and the juniors? Is it the whole club that you're kind of in charge for, or is it just the top 30?
So I have a much more hands-on role with the top squad and the New South Wales Cup players. So I probably see them face to face the most, and I have the most interaction with those people. And at the moment, we're trying to, and we do collect data on the academy players, obviously, because the end goal is with all academy players is you will develop them, you put time into them, and they grow with you, and they hopefully are going to filter up into the through the grades, through the junior reps, and then into New South Wales Cup, and then obviously NRL is the end goal for all of those players. So it's more about, for me specifically, it's trying to put in the pathways and maybe not pathways, the processes to have their data readily available, so that we can know, for instance, so it's easy access. If that player then progresses, we go, okay, well, we do know his history from when he was with the academy. He had XYZ injury, or he's done.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like, you got like a timeline of like, because you never know when, like 4 years down the line, when he is playing like what would you call it? Would you call it first grade?
Yeah, first grade, yeah.
When you are playing first grade, you don't know how important it's going to be to look 3-4 years back at these repetitive injuries he had a while ago, right? Or would I be right in saying it might even be the reason why he's chosen or not chosen, like, as well? Like, so someone who has repetitive injuries still might be an important piece of information to have when thinking about putting them on the first team.
Yeah, all information's important. So, like, obviously,
of course, as sports scientists.
well, I mean, it's all about context. So at the end of the day, obviously, it is rugby league. So it's like the first and end goal is probably to win a game, is to win games time on time. Obviously, it is important. Like, injuries are, especially if they're repetitive of the same nature or something like that. If you want a player who's going to play week in, week out for you, it's important in the conversation. Yeah. But for instance, there may be. It's also very important, the information around that injury. So if it was maybe handled poorly, there was a lack of understanding around it, or any number of reasons that could happen, and they could think they could improve upon the treatment of that repetitive injury. I'm sure.
Yeah. So I guess something you're doing here too is you're tracking their total run volume, the intensity of their run volume, obviously the weight sessions, and kind of integrating the program from the S&C coach, and using all that to monitor their load and volume and frequency and stuff of that nature, right?
Yeah, and even like kind of you touched on then is how it was managed. So you're not just, the data's not always just telling you about that individual, it's telling you about the team, and they're telling you about the people that are dealing with injuries as well. Like, how successful we can be with these injuries, how maybe we're not successful with these injuries, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So both of those points, I'd say correct. So, the data collection. So all the players, when they're training and playing games, they wear a GPS tracker. So it's a little unit about this big. It's either in their jersey or it's on a little vest, and it sits between their shoulder blades. And most of the time, you'll see me on the sideline with a laptop out and a little white box near me that's collecting all that data live. And so I try to keep an eye on it, track it, so we can have an idea, an understanding of how much they're running, how intense they're running, and then how that goes into their accumulated load. And then it all comes down to that's again, it's tricky. There's no similar to a lot of what you do with all your work. There's no one best solution of one thing that's the most important. It's all about how different things fit into the overall scheme of things. And further to your point, there's all that data does our best to be collected, so that, say a different player has the same injury or a very similar injury, they'll have some form of understanding of how to maybe start progressing in their rehab and things like that.
Man, if we're playing like Where's Wally in a Dragons match and we're trying to find the big Michael himself, whereabouts are you located? Are you on the sideline or are you in the coach's box?
I'm on the sideline at the moment, yeah. So it'll vary from time to time. I spent a few games in the box at the start of the year, and then I'm on the sideline now.
What is a role in like a live game? Like, you just collecting data and just plotting things in? Are you talking to anyone about this live data? If someone's slowing down, or I don't know how many runs they've had?
It's that's more dependent on the coaching staff around you. A lot of coaches, in my experience, it's a lot easier to kind of see things on the field than it is to trust a number about it. And that's why they're the coach. They have a much better and much more intuitive understanding of the game than someone like myself does. And obviously that's a lot more understanding than you can get from a number on a screen. But so there are, depending on different things, there are situations where they may ask you. So my role during the game is I kind of Split it up, yeah. I cut the game just because, just so I can have an understanding, and it's also, for me, it's easier to do it live than it is to do it post. So just tracking when the players are on and off the field, it's a good idea to understand, game intensities, the different intensities of different stints especially for the interchange players, and a good way of also is understanding little stoppages in the game for me as well. So like, if there's a extended captain's challenge or something like that, it's good to know.
Make sure it's noted down to say this is happening this time. It's not just them all standing there doing nothing.
It's
like, what's that big? Because we all know what we're like that. A few days later, you've forgotten everything about that game, right? So it can be really hard to be like, why did they all stand still for 5 minutes there if you're not doing it live, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's like, and I know, especially back to a few of my earlier episodes on the podcast, we've said it many times, context is always important, and there's a lot more things than just one answer. So it's all well and good to say this player did this many meters or did this, but if there's no context behind it and you say, oh, well, he just did that, then it doesn't mean it's good or bad.
I love how you say, like, you talk about the coach, and obviously the coach is like overriding everything with his intuition, and that kind of, obviously he knows better than most people because he sees the players the most. He hopefully gathers the information from obviously yourself, but having the players around them, their previous games, what the strength condition coach is saying, and everything together. And he relies on like, okay, well, I know this guy would normally do that, but he's not doing that right now, so I'm gonna like sub him or whatnot. But I think it's really interesting as well. Like you talk about intuition, and we kind of briefly mentioned before we started this podcast that we were talking about how you take like a health survey before they even start the day. Can you share with us like what kind of information is on that health survey, and like and I just wonder because I think it's super interesting when we've spoken about like running meters, we've spoken about like how well they're playing and stuff like that, but I wonder how much factored in other things and what kind of other things might be on that health survey.
Oh yeah. So
you call it a health survey?
Close enough. I call it like a wellness.
So a wellness survey,
very
nice.
Close.
It's a bit more holistic wellness, isn't it? Over health.
So pretty much. The data we collect there is just, we do our best to just get a kind of broad overview of how the player's feeling, anything that we might need to be aware of. Not that any one thing may cause a reaction, but just that, again, it adds to that understanding of the bigger picture. So
yeah, it's in context again, right? Like, and also it's accumulation of information. Like, I don't think you can ever really tell much from one instant, can you? You've always said that a lot.
But yeah, so we collect, information around their sleep, so quality in hours, and then different things about their mood and their anxiety/stress levels, and then just a more general understanding of their soreness. So in different body parts, where they're sore, how sore they are, obviously on a rating scale, and they're the big ones for us. Just the general soreness. Obviously, we split up into where they're sore, how they're, so kind of if you want to think about it, the wellness, their overall view of more of a psychological side of just some generalised questions about their mood and their stress levels, and then obviously their more physical stuff around how much they've slept
and obviously then this affects their training load, right? It's like if someone reports that they're pretty buggered, they're pretty sore and beat up, obviously S&C coach will then go, hey, let's taper off, maybe the bit of the intensity or volume and have more of a recoverable day and then get you back into fighting fit action, right?
You say that, but like, does every coach do that? Because there's different mentalities in training just in general, isn't there? Like, you can be like, yeah, exactly. You can be that more old school, and then like, there's not to say that either mentality like is perfect or completely right. Sometimes it's just like you're working no matter what. Like you like on game day, what have you got to do? You got like, if you're a main player, right, and you do have that a little bit of soreness in your hamstring, but you're an important part of the team, then you're working no matter what. So it does make sense sometimes to train that outside of that as well, because it does build up resilience, right?
Yeah.
To some level. And it's also, you can take that softer approach, and it's never going to work that you're going to be like super hard approach, super soft approach. Because I think if you ever flip the scale on too far on one side, then you're going to either destroy a team or you're going to have a bunch of like softies. Like
yeah. Well, yeah, you kind of just answered that for me. It's pretty much exactly right. So like, that data, like, it adds to all the conversations that are going to be had. It'll get brought up. It'll be a conversation between the different performance staff around if it is something they think of note, and they can have a discussion around it. And then further to the reaction that you were talking about there, James, it's probably comes down to that the level of like periodization as well. So like that, they're obviously, like you said, there's times when obviously you're training to, or is it a response? You have a high training load. and the players are probably aware, like, this is a tough week for us. You know, maybe you have a longer turnaround, so you have the ability to put a bit more stimulus into the players, or on the reverse, you know, there's not enough time to fully recover, or not fully recover, but not the same amount of time to recover from a higher stimulus. So you alter that up. So ultimately, they're ready for game day, which is
And like, what does ready for game day look like in your eyes? Like in your eyes, as someone else who plays a lot of rugby, a lot of football, it's like does ready for game day, like how does it look to you on paper, and then how does it look to you like as like in other ways? Like, because I say it's obviously a big part of motivation. There's like obviously a big part of just like, again, like being just tough and being able to push through and stuff like that. Like, how does it look to you being like ready for game day?
It's I'd say it's really varied between all players, because, you know, you see a real range of preparation on game day. You know, some players are a lot more relaxed, some are a lot more intrinsic, and like they're quite reserved and they spend a lot of time on thinking and like probably visualizing what they're doing. Other players like to get out of their head more and kind of have that more relaxed feel. I think, like exactly what you said before, like players, that they want to play, then they are there to play. And so I think that's probably the biggest indicator if they're ready, is like,
yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And because, like, I mean, exactly what you said, if they're a bit sore, they might go, oh yeah, I'm a bit sore, but that's not going to stop me from going out there and, you know, going as hard as I can for however long I'm needed.
I really like that as well. I want that, like, the players, they want to play, because it's kind of like, it depends where they're in their head, isn't it? If they're a little bit sore, but they're like, I want to play, I want this, like, then it's going to go, normally, it's going to turn out pretty well.
Yeah.
But when they're feeling so sore that it's in their own head, that they're like, I feel so sore.
Yeah.
And if I generally like the idea of like, they want to get onto the field, they want to play is probably, and I also think of that a lot. Like some players getting in their own head, some players want to get out of their own head. It's so interesting, isn't it? It really shoots for that kind of like how psychological the whole sport is, and how hard it can be. The hardest thing about psychological stuff is, as a sports scientist, like how do you accrue that information? Is it like, what kind of questions do you have regarding that? Or is it just like, does it come down to the coach's intuition, do you reckon, mostly?
Yeah, it can be tricky, yeah. So there are different ways that you can collect that information. Yeah, there's definitely would be some questionnaires and stuff like that would have some scientific backing behind them. How many of those are obviously tailored specifically towards elite athletes or towards NRL players, even a more specific data set? You're probably not going to have that as yet. I think if you ask the coach, you say, yeah, I can tell from watching on a gameplay, I can see how maybe a player is not playing to the same way that they normally would, or they're making different decisions. Stuff like that, I think, would be an indicator. But I think it's probably going to be much more of a subjective answer in reality, and it's a lot trickier to kind of, not tricky, but it's the decisions around that are obviously come down to more subjective feel sometimes.
This line is used massively in the NRL when they're talking about the best coaches of the NRL, the Bellamy's, the Wayne Bennett's, and that nature. I'm sure this translates into other sports as well. But the best coaches are generally man managers, and they know the player's personality. They know what they need. They know when to push. They know when to hold. They know when to pull back. And like we were saying earlier, whether like regards to training volume and how they're feeling, sometimes you need like, hey, mate, cuddles and kisses, you're okay. And other times you need a bit of the stick and say, mate, get over it, dig in. You know, this is the time where we need to get rough and guts and we need to go dig in.
I used to play a game called Championship Manager, and as a kid, it had no real graphics on it whatsoever. And you just used to watch. It's amazing how anyone would play it really now, but I'm sure they do. But it pops up on a screen and it says, this player did this. You watch the game, but you don't even watch the game. You just watch like dots moving around, and it says goal by you. And then after the game, you kind of have like, what's his name didn't perform, and then you get a list of like 1 to 5 options, and it's like number 1 is threaten to sell him, and like number 5 is like pat him on the back, say, hey, better luck next time. You go rest up, and it kind of like depending on what you choose there is how well he plays the next game, which is like it's pretty much what we're saying. The coach has this kind of like intuitive feel from obviously trial and error with players. He's never going to be straight up. And probably from what he gets told by previous coaches and other people that have handled this player, and just the team around him, right? Like you've got such an important role, Michael, that where you're feeding this certain part of information, but that can't be all the information ever because it's so hard to accrue. And like you said, like even if we're looking at studies to find information, you made such a good point there. It's like how many studies are actually done on top level professional football players when it comes to that, because most of these studies are done on uni students or something like that, like or just general population or well-trained populations. There is studies out there a lot, but there's very often you're going to find the right study for the right environment and context.
Yeah, no, definitely right. I think like at the end of it, like there is a limit on how much data you can have, and there's a limit on how much you can actually use. So there's some silly stat if you look for it online about how much data we've made in the last 50 years compared to all of.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I can't remember what that is.
It's like 99% of all information has been actually made in the last 50 years or something like that.
Yeah. So there's like that, and it's obviously growing by the day. So you're never going to be able to use all that, and you'll get overwhelmed by seeing all the numbers or the stats and everything. So it's important to kind of filter out what's important information to you, and that information is anything. So it could be, like the physical metrics that I provide or I present, and combined with the coach's knowledge of a player, how they react to different things, how they're communicating with them, or all those kind of things go into the decisions made. And it's not just it's nowhere near as simple as me putting forward a number or something, and then that's then decision made. I think that's the kind of is a common thing, like that art versus science is like very
100%.
easy to do. Say, this is the science, here's the numbers, X, Y, Z, but that art of, this is what a player needs, this is what a team needs.
There's that human touch, right? And you can imagine like sports science could be a field where AI kind of takes over, but that human touch is so integral, right? To go, wait, these numbers are representing this, but there is context behind it to reasons why the numbers are low or why the numbers are high, and having that human experience, like someone like yourself, to relay that information to a coach, that changes the data completely with a bit of context behind it. And that's something where a system, probably like an AI system or an automated system, just could not do that. So it's imperative to have that interpretation from like an experienced man like yourself to then bump that number to the coach and then provide a bit of context behind it.
And AI is really interested in that terms, because they actually say that like when AI obviously gets a little bit better and it keeps improving, that it will never it will never be able to replace, or won't be able to for a very, very long time, anything that involves some complex emotion. And like, you can't say that sport doesn't involve like complex emotions at all.
No, definitely. And I think, and even in little things like different people place more emphasis on different things. So some people go by the numbers a lot more. Other people rely a lot more on their intuition, and then they provide a combo. It's just it's all goes into different people's decision making.
I'm going to stop you there because I think that's super interesting. It's like some people will go by the numbers, some people go by intuition, but some people also won't realize that their intuition is judged and guided by the numbers. Like intuition is still only just a lot of information accumulated, and then you have a decision. And that's kind of why like the intuition of me coaching a team would be absolutely useless, right? Like, whereas someone who's had years of like working on his intuition, learning players, understanding like the information, getting information on the side, that even though sometimes you're not like 100% conscious of taking it in, it's happening in the background, right? That the brain is like super complex like that. So your intuition is always actually just like very, very guided thought, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like you can't, once you read something, obviously you can't get rid of it out of your head. So yes, one of those things that's that more subjective side as opposed to the pure objectivity of numbers and things.
Mickey, a bit different. How have you found some of the different stuff, like traveling on a weekly basis? How have you found like going to different stadiums and being on the road with the boys? What's that experience been like?
Yeah, it's been unreal. It's lots of fun at times, and obviously other times not so much. Like it's different, and it's definitely a surprising. It was obviously a big change for me, going from, we've had a fair bit of travel this first half of the season as well. So we've had, obviously we had Magic Round, and then we've had...
That would have been hectic, right?
Yeah, well, we actually played like the third last game on the Sunday. So we missed a lot of the noise and stuff. So we flew in the day before and then played our game, and then because we were playing in North Queensland the next week, we went for a camp on the Gold Coast straight away. So we were kind of in and out of Brisbane without too much of the noise of Magic Round. But it was cool to see, you know, a lot of people around in Brisbane all in their jerseys getting around to all the games, which is definitely a cool sight. But yeah, just that travel element is different, you know. Going through the group check-in with everyone there and facilitating all the players being on time.
Are you on a bus with the boys, or is like staff and the players separate?
Yeah, so there's pretty much, most of the time it's all staff are on the bus, with the exception of a few people who might head out a bit early just to get things ready for when players arrive and staff arrive. So most of the time I'm on the bus, yeah.
What's it like on the bus?
Varies, obviously. It can be different.
Depends. Does it depend win or lose? Does it
you'd be a bit remiss to think it wouldn't be. But and it's different, and obviously, you know, pre-games are also different. Same thing. There's no same. Yeah. Same. It's kind of always varied.
How's I guess the welcoming been for like yourself as a young talented bloke? Have the players been had a warm reception, and the staff had a warm reception to yourself as you come in, or has it been a bit of an adaptation phase to feeling comfortable there?
There was never any point that I felt welcomed and comfortable and stuff. I'd say it's more obviously adjusting to the environment of like the change rooms and stuff. Obviously, there's there's different players here and there who more of like that kind of boyish kind of change room kind of antics and stuff. Getting used to seeing them interact with each other. It was lots of fun. Yeah, so it's I was definitely welcomed and felt relatively comfortable pretty much straight away.
You've got to try and pick up the unspoken rules as quick as you can, because obviously there's your job that you need to do, but I'm sure there's things that people just don't tell you that you need to pick up in the first couple of weeks and months to make sure you don't step out of line. It must have been interesting to try and learn what to do or what to say or what not to say, more importantly as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's always a few different things like that, you know. Parked in the wrong spot once or twice, you know. Sat on the wrong seat on the bus once or twice. That was quick learning curve, move, get out.
Yeah.
But no, none of it was ever in. It was all in like good fun and stuff. It was just like.
Whose parking spot did you park in?
I parked in. I parked in the general manager footy's spot. It was early, and I was like,
"It's a bold move."
It's not. There's no sign or anything.
Just his spot. Yeah,
that was a power play.
Unspoken rule there. Yeah,
power play.
But yeah,
very aggressive.
Got away with the warning.
What's been some of the biggest highs of the whole experience so far?
So I think a few different highs. Like obviously, our win 2 weeks ago now against the Roosters. That was a
hectic match.
Yeah. So that was extremely going down to the last minute. You know, just being
scoring the last minute, right, or the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, something ridiculous like that, and it just to take us over for that win was after a pretty tricky time as well. So it was just a very a big rise and a big almost elation after that game. It was huge, and all the players were stoked. They were happy, and it was the change was a really good environment after that. So it was nice.
How cool! Like you said, the sport is emotional, but you're not a player, but yet your staff, and I'm sure you felt such on a natural high as well for the boys to win. It's crazy how it impacts the players, the staff, the fans. Sport is beautiful, man, for the highs because they're high and the lows are goddamn low.
Yeah, 100%. It was just definitely had to come back to earth quickly and go, I got a job to do. It was, that we scored and I was, up on my feet, kind of stuff. And I was like,
yes.
Laptop in the air.
Close to it. I was like, quickly sat it down. I was like,
we'll calm down.
Yeah, but no, it was, you're exactly right. It was just, that was also a kind of an interesting thing for me as well, was that like you said, that passion and stuff, it doesn't just die down once you get removed from the playing group. Everyone's there working towards the same thing, regardless of if they're on the field or if they're, doing something behind the scenes, and that even goes to the front office as well. They're all working towards, that same goal of getting a W on the weekend and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love how you did say that at the beginning as well. You said obviously number one priority is the win. Which is, it's so obvious, but I think people can get caught up in data and information and just generally everything and forget that the number one most important goal is that you win games, right?
Yeah.
I do love that.
I hope the Dragons have a stronger second half because there's a lot of talented boys out there and obviously a lot of talented staff as well, of course. But hopefully you boys play some finals at the end of this year and to have the potential for it. I'm sure that would be a hectic experience.
Yeah, 100%. That'd be unreal. And yeah, you're exactly right. We've got the potential. We've got got everything, and I believe so. Everyone just got to believe we can.
Being the data man, can you? I don't know if you can share this or not. Tell me if you can't. But like, I'd love to know like who the fastest and who the strongest is. Is that something you can share? Who the fastest man is and the strongest bloke in the gym?
So I'd say that the fastest that I've seen, and unfortunately he's actually he's off on an extended injury at the moment, but Cody Ramsey.
Oh, yeah. He's got a bit of a nasty one too, right?
Yeah, very very tricky. He's going through a few stages of recovery and stuff, so he's a little way off. But no, he'd probably be the fastest. As for strongest, it's tricky with strong athletes. There's all off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to tell you across different lifts of who's the strongest.
Who's the most just impressive in the gym?
I don't know actually. So a lot of players have different attributes that are quite impressive. You know, you have a lot more like you have some very very powerful athletes like our wingers. You know, they're very power based athletes, just exploding through tackles and things like that. And then
Ravalawa?
What? Ravalawa.
He's a beast. He's a scary man. I would hate to line up against that. His legs are like 3 of my legs combined is one of his legs. He's a beast.
He's a beast. He's fast. He's big. He's strong. No, he's quite impressive in the weight room. But no, they all train hard. They work hard, and they're all obviously. It's always impressive to be at that level. You know, they put their body through a lot on game day, and they do their best to recover afterwards and get ready to go again.
Another one, because you got the what's it called? The female league. What's it bloody called?
Oh, NRLW.
Yes, NRLW. God, I just could not get that out of my mouth. Because you guys are just starting to form. Because I know the ladies are being signed at the moment. Everything's starting. When does that kick off? And do you have involvement with the NRLW?
So they've just started their training, I believe. So
nice.
everything was delayed with their signings and stuff due to a few agreements and stuff with the league and things like that. But they've just started, and I don't have as much a hands-on role with them. So similar to kind of my role with
Academy.
Yeah. So whereas I try to put the processes in place and facilitate everything that those staff need from a sports science perspective, I try to give them what they need and help them to go about their day-to-day and their week-to-week and their decision-making as they kind of need to.
Because I know that spectrum, that aspect of NRL at the moment, the NRLW, is massively growing. Because I think like the Dragons did pretty damn well last year. They've got a really strong team. And I know the NRL's injecting 2 more teams this year and then like another 2 teams next year. The pay's increasing, the sports science and the coaching staff is starting to grow. Like a massive area of growth happening in the NRL for the NRLW.
Yeah, definitely.
It's cool to see.
It's unreal. It's really good just to see that growth keep coming, and it's definitely positive, you know, to have all those injections of teams and drive that growth, hopefully, of pay increases, you know, staff, players, all those things. Exactly what you said. It's really good to see.
Nice. What's coming up for you in the back? Is this the second half of the season now? Coming to the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're about halfway.
Halfway. What's the second half of the season looking like for you at the moment? What's going forward into the second half of the season, work-wise and just team-wise?
It's just, you know, it's kind of, you don't want to look too far ahead because you always got to just play what's in front. So, you know, we've got Penrith on Sunday night. So that's at the moment, that's kind of our focus. It's not about, doesn't matter.
Week by week.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who we play next week. It's about, you know, our goal is to beat Penrith on Sunday, and that's all we kind of need to focus on at the moment. So,
what about you, man? Like, obviously, looking to play October finals footy in October, but after that, you like looking at any holidays? You doing anything you focused outside of your work? Any plans for yourself?
So not nothing too crazy. Just looking to obviously around that off season, which is that October. So finals in September, and then rest of October is our kind of leave period. That's our off period, obviously, with pre-season rolling back around in November. So just looking to get some time away, obviously spend some time with Zoe and everything, and get a little bit of a break from footy before hopefully getting back into it again in November.
Just a month off?
Yeah, just about like that's the kind of it varies, with different players and in terms of their experience level, and obviously last year was different we had the World Cup, so that was a bit of a change and players coming back.
Do you still keep up with your rugby union, or like are you now like just immersed in the league world, or do you still have a bit of love for union?
No, I definitely do. I still get around when I can, so I'm still playing on occasion when I'm not travelling.
Nice.
Yeah, it's obviously a bit tricky, with.
You're playing like Div 2, Div 3?
Yeah, so playing a bit of second grade and third grade when I can, and just I enjoy it, and me personally, I know I won't. It's much easier for me to go and get told to run by a coach than it is to get myself up and go for a run.
Yeah.
So
Keeps you fit, right? And fitter than you would be if you just allowed yourself to keep yourself fit, right? We're on the treadmill or whatnot.
100%.
Are you still with Sydney Uni?
Yeah. So still with Sydney Uni at the moment, and just so getting. I like to get around to training when I can and get to games as often as I can as well, just because I enjoy it, and exactly it keeps me fit. It's good to. It's funny that my time away from footy is still at footy, just a different time.
Yeah.
So
I was wondering.
This is so relaxing.
With weekends getting taken up with game days, what kind of days do you work? What's your work week look like? Are you working 6-7 days a week, or is it?
Well, it kind of it's a tricky one. So kind of like I started off with saying it's based off the players' schedule a lot more. So it's kind of, if you're going to look at like an overall week, it doesn't really matter what days of the week it is. It's more of a you kind of start looking at the week as game +1, game +2, game -3, things like that. So and that schedule can vary with travel and things. But there's always I'd say so I'm in office when the players are training, so I'm there when the players are there, and then there are other things that I can work on aside from that, little things I've got that I'm trying to keep track of over time, and just little things to try and keep up with everything with that environment. So day off here and there when the players aren't training. Today I'm here with you guys, which is good.
Oh yeah, man!
Yeah,
Pleasure to have you.
for your time. With that being said, say for example that we get quite a lot of Sydney uni students in here, so we get a lot of obviously the sports scientists and the exercise physiologists. Have you got any advice for a up and coming sports scientist that wants to kind of get somewhere like you have yourself? Because that would be where most of the guys aspire, right? Because a lot of people start off with obviously that kind of or want to work with athletes, right? And it is the most exciting thing. So would you have any advice for them?
I always, to preface as well, keep in mind, I say, grain of salt, I've been extremely lucky, and there's obviously a million different pathways, but I think in my experience, just try a lot of things as well. So I did internships in performance analysis and stuff like that as well. That was in netball, I did that, and just try to figure out what I enjoyed doing, and kind of just be prepared to. It's unfortunate, but be prepared to kind of to volunteer your time. And apart from that, so get a handle on doing things that you might not have originally thought you might like. So you don't just be solely focused on I must do sports science. Make sure you try and have a look at other aspects, whether that's S&C work or things like that, which I'm sure a lot of people are doing. Similar to that is kind of you gotta love sport kind of thing. You gotta enjoy it, and exactly what we're talking about, context is important. So you can learn a sport, yeah, that's for sure, but it does help to kind of get some understanding of a sporting environment, whether that's playing or spectating or going to games or anything like that. Just kind of immerse yourself in that environment, because it's obviously a lot different to being in a uni classroom or something like that. Or but I think in terms of other things, just skills, just try to be across things, different elements, basic things in Excel and stuff always help you out there. I think that'd be the biggest.
Yeah, I think what you've mentioned there is a bunch of things that people don't often think about first. Some people either have an idea of what they want to achieve, or not even what they want to achieve, but they think this is their career path and that's where they want to go, and they haven't stuck their toe in enough different things to actually realize, I don't like this part of this, but I love everything about this, And at the same time, you do have to give up a fair bit of time, and you are going to have to work hard for very little at first to kind of get the foot in the door. And what you said there is like, if you're going to work in a team sport environment and you haven't experienced team sports, then you're going to be shocked. And especially if the only thing you've experienced is university, which is such a different environment. And, or maybe even you've just experienced like an individual sport, like until you've experienced a team sport and like a bunch of different personalities molded in together in one room, like very hot, very cold, like all these different things going on, you wouldn't be able to fit into it until you have, right?
Yeah.
Because it can be very, like we get it in here, right, in the gym, like group training is kind of like, you've got 12 different people all managing completely different things with very different personalities all in the same room. Sometimes you're lucky that it just doesn't explode in front of your face, you know?
In hindsight, God, you had some good lead up. I know how there was a bit of luck involved, but you've always been a bit of a nerd on Excel in the most endearing way I can say it. You've worked really hard to...
He's excellent.
So you've had great communication skills and like learning the S&C world like through your time here would have given you so much more context to what's done in a team setting, to play at quite a high level of union that you did, volunteering your hours. Everything was designed to be like a perfect candidate to work at a very high level in a sports science context. So like maybe while you're in it, you don't really know that you're doing all this good lead-up training to be ready for this job later on. But in hindsight now, you can kind of see it was like the perfect storm for you.
Yeah.
You actually just had your head down working on all the perfect skill sets to turn yourself to be ready for this job. So like it's amazing. Like yes, there was a bit of luck, but also you have to give credit to yourself because you're the one that did all the extra hours on the Excel and learning the intricacies there on the sports science world, volunteering your hours, upping your coaching skills in here, learning how to talk to different types of people with different needs and that. You created this, man, and that's a massive pat on the back to you to see where you're at right now and how much hard work you just put in.
Yeah, and some people put themselves in that environment and with all these different things, but they don't give everything 100%, right? And they just kind of like expect the wave to crash over them in a sense. But you kind of rode the wave, like you just did it all, and I think you always gave 100% in everything I saw you do.
Thank you. Oh, guys, made me blush here, but
You're being too humble. So.
No, I think like I really appreciate it. And actually, something I was going to bring up after in terms of advice, I think is important to kind of like have a crack at what you do, even if it's something you may not enjoy doing or it's something you may not see yourself continuing. Like at the end of the day, the worst case scenario is you get another skill set and you have a bit of a changed perspective on something you might use later on. And I'll be perfectly honest. When I was assigned here for my placement in undergrad 3 years ago or whatever it was, I hated getting up at 4:30. I was that off.
Man, I still hate waking up at 4:30. It hasn't changed.
I was that off it, going like, oh, like, why am I like get out like, ugh.
Here we go.
No, but I think like at the end of the day, you've only got like kind of two choices. It's have a crack or don't. And so.
If you're going to do something, like you better just do it to your best of your ability, right? And you just get better with it over time. I feel like whatever you're doing, you should always try and do it to your best of your ability.
No, 100%. I agree with that, and I think that like it can stand to help you out in different ways as well. Even if it's something different, you don't want to do that. Then worst case scenario, you've got yourself a good reference where you've built up some good skills in a different environment.
Yes,
makes you a more rounded. Individual.
Beautiful.
That's a beautiful voice. Boys, shall we go get lunch?
Yep, 100%.
Let's do it. All right, thanks for listening, guys. And thank you again for your time, Michael.
No worries.
Absolute legend there to reconnect.
That's really good.
Cheers,
I love being here. Thanks for having me back. It's good.
Thanks,
Let's go eat, lads.
100.
See you guys. Bye.